Queen Elizabeth I of England and Sir Walter Raleigh wanted gold and glory in the New World. They made plans, recruited colonists, and established the colony of Roanoke in what is today North Carolina in 1585. What follows is an odd story of coming and leaving and coming and disappearing repeatedly. The first group of colonists became discouraged when new supplies didn't arrive, so they hitched a ride on a ship when Sir Francis Drake stopped by. They'd only been there for 9 months, but they'd managed to alienate the local Indian tribes. The supply ship arrived about 2 weeks later and found everyone was gone. The ship returned to England, leaving 15 men behind to maintain the area, but when the next group arrived in 1587, the 15 had disappeared. The group of 150 that came in 1587 was led by an interesting man named John White. White was a friend of Sir Walter Raleigh, which wasn't all that unusual, but the fact that White was an artist and mapmaker was. White was made governor of the colony, but also commissioned by Queen Elizabeth to document the New World and the natives. White did invaluable watercolor paintings which still exist today. White's daughter and her husband were part of that group of 150, and his granddaughter Virginia Dare was born on August 18, 1587, becoming the first English child born in America. John White returned to England, promising supplies and more help for the colonists. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to return for 3 years. In 1590, anxious to see his granddaughter again, he was devastated to find the colonists had disappeared with no trace. What he did find were a few broken cannons, an open chest, a tall fence around the site, his art supplies scattered, and a carving on a tree, the word Croatan, the name of a local Indian tribe. One of the men that disappeared was Peter Barber's ancestor, Roger Bailey. Bailey's wife and son had remained in England, but his son apparently had his father's sense of adventure because he became a colonist to Jamestown in 1621. There are theories about what happened to the people of Roanoke, but no proof. The most probable guess is they met their death at the hands of the natives. When White and his crew left, they were engulfed in a storm off Cape Hatteras, near the Indian village of Kinnikit. The cook on that trip was a young David O'Neill, another ancestor of Peter Barber. David was one of the survivors of the wreck. He married a native whom he called Morning Dew and remained on the island. Fast forward 16 years. Queen Elizabeth has died, and King James is now on the throne of England. The desire for gold and glory continues. The king offers up large amounts of land to colonists willing to settle in the New World. In December 1606, 3 ships set out: the Susan Constant, the Godspeed, and the Discovery, with 144 people making the journey for adventure and hopefully a quick profit. Some came as indentured servants, with their passage being paid in advance of their service. The first group that arrived in April 1607 had been headed for Roanoke Island, but were blown off course and found themselves in the Chesapeake Bay, where they stayed. They named their new fort after King James, Jamestown. Peter Barber's ancestor Thomas Gray arrived in 1608, the earliest known ancestor to settle in Jamestown. Most of the colonists were gentlemen, unused to hard labor, so things didn't go too well at first. A big problem was not enough food. Captain John Smith turned out to be a very effective leader of the colony and implemented a no work, no food policy, and things got better. The colony developed, but out of 400 settlers in 1607 and 1608, only 60 were alive in 1609. More colonists arrived, including several of Peter's ancestors, plus Jackman and Gamel ancestors as well. Powhatan was the leader of the local Indians, and relations were friendly at times and strained at times. Les Bovee, husband of Irene Jackman, had a well-documented ancestor named Thomas Savage, who came as a young boy in 1608 and was sent to live with the Indians to learn the language and to be an adopted son of the chief. The kidnapping of Powhatan's daughter Pocahontas in 1613, her later marriage to colonist John Rolfe, and subsequent death in England is a well-known story. Less is known of her child Thomas Rolfe, who is an ancestor of Renee and Cheryl Jackman through their mother. The property around Gray's Creek is believed to have been his and was first known as Rolfe's Creek. By 1648 it was called Gray's Creek, named after Peter's ancestor Thomas Gray mentioned earlier. Just when things seemed to be getting better, a brutal attack by supposedly friendly Indians killed over 300 in 1622. In addition to the loss of life, crops were destroyed and disease the next winter killed even more. 50 years later, Jamestown was the center of a complicated event called Bacon's Rebellion, involving several ancestors. The governor at the time was William Berkeley, and the leader of the rebels, Nathaniel Bacon, was a distant relative. There were economic issues, but the biggest problem was the lack of support by the governor in dealing with the Indian attacks. Jamestown was severely burnt during the rebellion. Gamel ancestor Lewis Williams was a Bacon supporter who managed to survive. Others weren't so lucky. Peter's ancestors William Scarborough and Thomas Wilsford were 2 of the 23 hanged as punishment for their part in the rebellion. Interestingly, Bacon escaped punishment because he died of illness, and the governor was finally recalled. Jamestown and Roanoke were the first English settlements in America, with Jamestown remaining as the capital of Virginia until 1698. By the mid-1700s, it was basically abandoned. Famous people such as Queen Elizabeth, Sir Walter Raleigh, Captain John Smith, and Pocahontas were important, but so were Peter's ancestors Roger Bailey, David O'Neill, Morning Dew, Thomas Gray, William Scarborough, Jackman ancestors William Jones and John Price, Gamel ancestors John Mills and Lewis Williams. All were adventurers and played a role in the development of early colonial America.